just accused one of the most powerful politicians in South Africa of secretly taking R60 million, and now lawyers are stepping in with a 24-hour ultimatum that could explode into a full-blown legal war. This isn't just gossip. This is a direct allegation of corruption, foreign influence, and political betrayal. And if even a fraction of it is true, it could shake public trust at the highest level. But if it's false, then we're looking at one of the most dangerous cases of defamation in recent political history. Because now, Julius Malema is demanding answers. And Ngizwe Mchunu has just 24 hours to respond, or face serious consequences. If you want to stay updated on stories like this as they unfold, make sure you like this video and subscribe. Because what we're about to unpack gets deeper, more complex, and far more unsettling than it first appears. To understand why this situation is so explosive, you have to understand the people involved. Julius Malema is not just any politician. He is the leader of the Economic Freedom Fighters, a party known for its strong rhetoric on economic justice, land reform, and African unity. He has built a reputation as a fearless, controversial figure who speaks openly about inequality and power structures. Over the years, he has positioned himself as a defender of African people across borders, often condemning xenophobia and calling for solidarity among Africans. On the other side, Ngizwe Mchunu is a media personality and political commentator who is no stranger to controversy himself. Known for outspoken views and viral statements, Mchunu has often inserted himself into heated national debates. But this time, his words may have crossed into territory that carries serious legal consequences. Because what he said was not vague. It was not subtle. It was direct. He claimed that Julius Malema received R60 million from Nigerians and suggested that this is the reason Malema is perceived to be protective of Nigerian nationals in South Africa. That is a heavy accusation. It implies corruption. It implies foreign financial influence. It suggests that political positions are not based on principle but on money. And in a country already dealing with tensions around immigration, crime, and economic pressure, such a statement doesn't just affect one person. It touches on deeply sensitive national issues. But here's where things get serious. Malema's legal team did not ignore the statement. They moved quickly. They issued a formal letter to Ngizwe Mchunu demanding a public apology, and not just that. They demanded R1 million in damages. And they gave him just 24 hours. That kind of response tells you something. It signals that Malema is not treating this as casual commentary. He is treating it as a direct attack on his reputation, one that he is prepared to fight in court if necessary. Now, let's break down how this situation unfolded step by step. It began with Mchunu making the claim publicly, reportedly through his platform where he often shares political opinions. The statement quickly gained traction. People began sharing it, debating it. Some believed it. Others dismissed it as baseless. But as the claim spread, so did the pressure. Because in today's digital world, allegations like this don't stay contained. They move fast. And once they gain attention, they can shape public perception before any evidence is presented. And that's exactly what seems to have triggered Malema's response. Within a short period, his legal team stepped in. They drafted a letter outlining the seriousness of the allegation and the damage it could cause. They demanded a retraction, an apology, and financial compensation. But here's where things get disturbing. The 24-hour deadline. That's not a casual request. That's pressure. It creates urgency. It forces a response. And it raises the stakes immediately. Because if Mchunu refuses or fails to respond within that window, the next step could be legal action. And that means court proceedings, evidence, testimony, public scrutiny. Now pause for a second and think about what that would mean. If this goes to court, one of two things must happen. Either Mchunu would have to provide credible evidence to support his claim, or Malema's legal team would argue that the statement is defamatory and false. And that's where things could become even more explosive. Because what happened next raised serious questions. Another layer was added, one that moved the conversation beyond personal motives into political territory. Rumors began circulating that organizations like AfriForum could be influencing or benefiting from these narratives. Some even suggested financial backing. But again, there is no confirmed evidence supporting those claims. So why are they gaining traction? This is the part few people are talking about. To understand that, you need to look beyond the individual and into the environment the story exists in. South Africa has faced recurring waves of xenophobic tension over the years. These tensions are often fueled by economic pressure, unemployment, and competition for limited resources. In such a climate, narratives matter. Public figures matter even more. Because when someone with influence speaks, especially on sensitive issues, the impact can extend far beyond their immediate audience. Now, let's break down the timeline carefully. First, we have the earlier period, years back, where Jacinta Zintle Zuma is seen or reported as criticizing xenophobic violence and supporting unity. Then comes the original video, where she expresses admiration for Nigerian men. At the time, it may have seemed like just another viral moment, but context changes everything. Next, we move forward to more recent years. New clips begin to surface, showing a different tone, a different message. These clips quickly gain attention, especially as tensions around immigration and identity continue to rise. This becomes the turning point, because now the past and present are no longer separate, they are being directly compared. And then social media takes control. Clips are reposted, edited, recaptioned. Narratives are built around fragments of information. And within days, a complex situation becomes a simplified storyline. Love turned into hate. But is it really that simple? Or is there more beneath the surface? Because what happened next raised even more questions. Why hasn't there been a detailed public response directly addressing the contradiction? Why allow speculation to fill the gaps? Supporters argue that her words are being misinterpreted. They say she's addressing broader issues: crime, policy, immigration, not targeting individuals based on nationality. Critics disagree. They argue that the tone and language used in recent clips contribute to harmful stereotypes and could inflame tensions. So, which version is accurate? That depends on interpretation. And interpretation, in the age of viral content, is often shaped by emotion rather than context. Now, let's talk about impact. Because this story doesn't exist in isolation. In communities already dealing with tension, narratives like these can deepen divisions. They can influence how people perceive one another, and in extreme cases, how they act. Economically, xenophobic tensions can affect businesses, particularly those owned by foreign nationals. Socially, they can erode trust between communities that have lived side by side for years. Politically, they can become tools used by different groups to push different agendas. And this is where things become even more complex. Because once rumors of external influence enter the conversation, the focus shifts. It's no longer just about what was said. It becomes about who benefits. Is this outrage organic? Or is it being amplified for a reason? At this point, there is no concrete evidence proving coordinated manipulation in this specific case. But the fact that people are asking these questions says a lot. It reflects a deeper level of distrust. Distrust in public figures. Distrust in institutions. Distrust in information itself. And that's a bigger issue than any single controversy. Now, let's look at public reaction. On social media, the response has been intense and divided. Some users are calling her out for hypocrisy, pointing to the old video as evidence. Others are defending her, arguing that people are allowed to change their views based on experiences. And then there are those who are simply trying to make sense of conflicting information. Traditional media has taken a more cautious approach, focusing on verified statements and avoiding speculation. But even there, the story has gained attention. Because at its core, this isn't just about one person. It's about how narratives are formed and how quickly they can change. But here's where things get even more unsettling. In the age of viral content, context is often lost. A 30-second clip can define a person's reputation. An edited video can shape public perception. And once a narrative takes hold, it becomes very difficult to change. So, what happens next? At this stage, there are no confirmed legal actions or investigations directly tied to these claims. The situation remains largely within the realm of public debate. However, if statements are found to incite harm or violate laws, authorities could step in. That would depend on evidence, context, and legal standards. More immediately, we're likely to see continued discussion, more clips, and possibly further responses from those involved. But the bigger question remains, will this story fade away? Or will it become part of a larger conversation about accountability, influence, and responsibility? Because what you saw at the beginning, that clip, isn't just a contradiction. It's a trigger for debate, a trigger for speculation, a trigger for something much bigger. And maybe the most uncomfortable question of all is this. If narratives can shift this quickly, if public figures can be redefined by a few clips, then what does that say about the information we consume every day? Are we seeing the full story? Or just the version that spreads the fastest? Because in a world driven by viral moments, truth isn't always what's loudest. Let me know what you think.